Welcome into the show. This is Talking Tide. This is the Week 7 review show. We're going to be talking all things Bama versus Vanderbilt, plus a couple of upsets that happened at the top of the AP poll, where a couple of preseason favorites are now unranked. We're going to talk about all that. First things first, please do like, please subscribe, hit that little bell notification. We will do live videos every once in a while. We have got a full show tonight. This stack of papers, my show notes, is the biggest it's been all year. Football is officially heating up, and we saw it this past weekend. We'll go ahead and get straight into it. There's one weekend every single college football season that I'll say it's just that Freaky Friday weekend. Upsets happen left and right. Weird things go on. You have some crazy plays. And that was this past weekend. We were sitting at Bryant-Denny, close to halftime of the Vanderbilt game. I look up at the ticker that's got the scoreboards on it around the country. I see UCLA beating Penn State. I see Texas getting beat by Florida. I see a ton of just weird results up there. And I look over at my brother who's sitting next to me and I say, this is going to be that weekend, isn't it? He's like, yeah, it looks like it. I said, you know what? I don't care what happens anywhere else. As long as Bama goes out here and we win this football game, that's all I care about. And we did. So now we get to go and we get to laugh at a couple other teams, because if we lost, I wouldn't be as happy and jovial as I am right now. I woke up this morning, the sun was shining a little bit brighter. The birds were chirping a little bit louder. The grass was a little bit greener. Bama beats Vanderbilt and puts things right in the world. We will get to that game, but I do want to stick around a couple of other games as well. The AP poll just dropped. I did a video on that. Let's get straight into it. First things first, Penn State. There's no other way to say this. They got beat by a 0-4 team who has no defensive coordinator, no offensive coordinator, and no head coach. So there's a ton of talk about this game. You can talk about the statistics. You can talk about how the game went. I don't care about any of that at this moment in time, because it's nothing new for Penn State. There's always a program that draws unreasonable rage out of me, and I don't know if it's towards the fans. I don't know if it's towards the team or the head coach or what it is. That used to be Michigan State. I used to think Michigan State was such an underperforming team that had so much confidence going into football seasons and produced nothing. We're never in the talk for national championship hopes as of recently. I always thought they underperformed. Irrelevant not even halfway through the season most of the times. But that's slowly starting to shift. Penn State is just, to say they're a disappointment is an understatement. Here's the thing. I want to preface this by saying I thought Penn State being number 2 preseason was insanity right off the jump. I've done a ton of shorts on it. That they're, as far as teams that I will love to, I don't love to rag on them, but they're one of those teams that has consistently underperformed, whether it's in the postseason now or whether it's in the regular season, big games, no matter what it is. Penn State is that team that you can always trust to disappoint you. And again, I don't know if I'm angry at whether it's James Franklin or Drew Aller or the fans. I don't know who it is that I'm angry at. I don't even know if I'm angry at them, but I feel like the fans specifically should. They deserve better, to be fair. Penn State's a historic program. They got some great traditions. Whiteout game was awesome. I want to go to one. But they need to get more out of this football program. At the end of the day, the fans are what programs are built around and built for. And this fan base, I would say, deserves better. But they also have to, I would say, be better in the way of you have to demand more out of your football team. I know that James Franklin has been there for a long time, but he hasn't got it done. And I'll start with this. I don't think Drew Aller is the guy to take them to a national championship. I said it last year. He's a fine quarterback. Is he a national championship quarterback? No. And that's not just for the UCLA game. That's for all the games that have built up into this. He's not the guy for me personally. Here's the biggest problem that Penn State has, and some would say it's a problem, some would say it's a benefit, but James Franklin is so dug into that program right now For one, he's not going to get fired because of this. That's not what I'm saying right now. He has held the keys to the kingdom for years now, had free reign. It's been since I want to say 2016, somewhere around there. Someone correct me on that. But for a decade, he has been at Penn State. He has been given the keys to this historic football program and has done nothing with it. It's a travesty that they are so underwhelming. And it's not just this year, it's not last year, it's every year. The big thing that's always thrown around 4-21. That's not a play that Bama ran against Auburn. That is James Franklin's record against AP poll top 10. I'll give you another one. 1-21. That's his record outside of 2016. He had 3 top 10 wins inside of 2016. Since then, 1-21 against AP top 10 teams. The one win came against Boise State last year in the playoffs. That is not good enough. That is not good enough to run Penn State. And again, I'm not a Penn State fan. I love college football as a whole. I love the pageantry of it. I love the tradition. And the tradition around Penn State is insane. The atmosphere when you go to games there is insane. But that's not good enough. It's as simple as that. And we can talk about stats, and we can talk about that all day. We can talk about games have been won and lost by however many scores. It doesn't matter. We can talk about that all day. I don't think Penn State is going to fire James Franklin, but the thing is, he's going to have to do better. And he has to look at it. I think this is one of the things that gets a little bit overlooked. Clearly, these coaches are fans of these teams. You're not at Penn State for a decade if you don't love the history and the tradition of Penn State. I'm not questioning that about James Franklin. But he has to take a big step back and look and say, am I the right guy for the job? I don't listen to much sports media. I try and keep my own opinions. I try not to get swayed by anybody. Anytime I do these previews or reviews, I don't ever watch anything before, just so I can get my own clear-headed view on things. But one guy I love to listen to is Josh Pate. Been listening to him for years before he was, where he is now, which is great. I love that he is that guy now. He always loves the phrase "haven't" and "can't." And there's two big differences. Ryan Day was a guy who hadn't won the big one, but people always said he couldn't. Okay, well, clearly now he's won a national championship. So he was the guy a couple of years ago who hasn't, who people said can't. Now he is the guy who did. James Franklin is always in that talk of, is he a guy that hasn't done it yet, or is he the guy that can't do it? And year after year, big game after big game, it's always, well, he hasn't done it yet. I'm starting to question if he can. At this point, I'm convinced. I don't know if it's in his own head. I don't know if it's just a mojo around the team. I don't know what it is, but I'm starting to believe that James Franklin can't win not just the big one, not the national championship game, a big game, an AP poll top 10 game. I don't know if he can. And they have plenty more opportunities this season to do. They play Indiana in a couple of weeks. They play Ohio State later this year. They're 0-2 in Big Ten play. Out of 2 games, they're 0-2. So they have a lot of soul searching to do. James Franklin has a lot of soul searching to do. If he doesn't change what's going on in that program, either he needs to be the man and say, you know what, I'm not the guy for this job. I need to leave, or he might. And again, I don't like calling for people's jobs. I don't think he will be fired over this result. But at the end of the season, you might look at him and say, you know what, we're Penn State. We have a lot of draw. People would love to come coach here. We need to move on. We need to find the next guy. And you've given the guy all the time in the world. You have a fantastic football program. You have a program that coaches would love to come and be a part of. So this is that first crack, I think, in the armor of James Franklin, where you go and you lose to Oregon last week in double overtime. Oregon's a good football team. And you say, okay, we lost to a good football team. We gave them a fight. But now it's to a point where they said they didn't take the Oregon loss well. Okay, well, you showed that. How are you going to take this UCLA loss? You've got two other losses likely on that schedule. You went from a preseason favorite to win a national champ, one of the preseason favorites to win a national championship, where you're staring down the barrel now of not making the playoffs. And I don't think you should. They get dropped out of the AP poll. They play Ohio State. They play Indiana. I don't see him making the playoffs, and that's when the discussion really comes into saying, is he the right guy to lead this football program? Anyway, we'll get off of that and talk about coaches who should be fired. We'll talk about a guy who probably was playing for his job this past weekend, Billy Napier. Billy Napier in Florida take on Texas in the swamp and upset the AP poll preseason #1 Texas Longhorns. I started this off by talking about Florida. I don't really want to talk about Florida. I like Billy Napier. I like DJ Lagway. I think that team underperformed a lot so far this year. I think they are a lot better than what they have shown. Do 5 interceptions against LSU. That's the big talking point that everybody wants to go on. And look, I mean, they lost that game because they deserved to lose that game. But I think the ceiling is high for this Florida team. I think the ceiling is high for DJ Lagway. But again, that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about Texas. When you talk about teams like Penn State who have underperformed this season, Texas is #1. And there's a ton of stuff that's going to go into this. There's a ton of talk around Texas about Manning and what this team is and who they are, like what's their identity, what have they accomplished. Well, they're an AP poll #1. They're now officially outside of the top 25. Where do you go now? Where do you go now if you're Texas? You were the AP poll #1 to start the season. You had the preseason Heisman favorite. It was all set up for you to have a big step forward in trying to take this program towards a national championship, and you've done the opposite. You're out of the national championship talk 7 weeks into the season. We're not even in November, and you're out of it. Texas coming to the SEC, I've always believed that Texas is a big program. They obviously are. Again, like Penn State, they have history, they have tradition, they have a lot of draws that bring players and coaches in. I think Steve Sarkisian is a fantastic coach. As a Bama fan, I was heartbroken when we lost him. But and I don't think this is on Sark necessarily. I think that there's a lot of factors that went into this to put Texas where they currently are now. I thought after last season, I bought into the hype. I thought that Texas was going to be the team that makes a big spearheaded run into the playoffs and potentially have a chance to win the whole thing. But this is a major step back for Texas. So the first thing is, and this is the icing on the top of the cake. This is the part that everybody scrapes off the top and says, "Oh, well, here's your problem." We have to talk about Arch Manning. I mean, the dude was a preseason Heisman favorite. Now he's not even going to sniff New York, which has been obvious for the past couple of weeks now. Quarterback play is a big issue. One thing that's not talked about enough is the running back play out of Texas. The running back play out of Texas, nobody in that running back room has run for more than 100 yards in a game. And that's a problem if you're Texas. If you have a quarterback that's struggling and you can't get the ground game going, you're stuck in quicksand. You're not going to do anything. The defense has played okay for Texas, but if your offense can't get moving with a guy like Steve Sarkisian as your play caller and you can't get the ball moving, that's a serious issue for Texas. A couple more stats that kind of condemn the run game. Wisner he was their leading rusher for a game so far this season. He had 80 yards against Ohio State. They haven't cracked that for the rest of the year. They play teams like Sam Houston. This past weekend, Arch Manning was their leading rusher with 37 yards against Florida. What are they doing? They have too much potential, too much talent. They have a great offensive coordinator. I don't understand where this giant step back has come from Texas. And I'll say that Sarkisian probably saw it coming last year. I think he knew that Arch Manning was not going to be the guy to lead them forward. You heard all the calls for him to start over Quentin Ewers, and you heard a lot of the chatter around Arch Manning, but I think Sarkisian really knew that he was not going to be the guy to carry them forward. But what are you going to do if you're Sarkisian? You can't say, "Oh, well, we're going to go get another quarterback out of the portal." We have a Manning sitting on our bench. He's going to play football for name alone. But I think that he secretly knew this. He was pretty low key for most of what I saw in the preseason hype and the preseason polls and all this kind of stuff. But I don't know where Texas go from here. You're in a serious rebuild situation, kind of like Penn State. And to be fair, rebuilding college football teams this day and age is much easier than it was in the past. You don't have to wait for a guy to develop for a couple of years as a true freshman. You can go get guys out of the portal. And again, Texas is a huge draw. They're not nearly as in a deep of a hole as a team like Penn State is, but the big downside for them is they play SEC ball. It's tough games every week. I haven't actually looked at Texas's schedule, and they do have a fairly light SEC schedule. But I mean, again, they're another team that's on the outside looking in now. They don't control their own destiny. They're outside of the top 25. They're not going to be inside of the 12 for the playoff committee. They and Penn State are in a very similar situation this season. I wouldn't say as a whole. I would say as a whole, Penn State doesn't really have a direction. I think Steve Sarkisian has a direction for Texas that he's going to try and take them in, but this year is not going to be that year. It's a huge step back for Texas. All right. We're about to get into Bama stuff. Also, I do want to shout out Miami. Miami, for me, is the clear number one team in the country. They went out and FSU made this game look closer than it was on the scorecard. This game was never close. Miami was the clear better team. They dominated Florida State from pretty much whistle to whistle. Carson Beck looks like a different guy at Miami. I don't know what he's done in the offseason other than get a new relationship, but whatever he's doing has worked in Miami. For me, they're the clear number one. Ohio State hasn't faltered, and they haven't looked bad. They haven't really struggled this season so far, so you can't really knock them out of the number one spot, I don't think, if you're an AP guy. But if I had an AP vote, I would say Miami's my number one. So shout out to them. All right, we're going to talk about what everybody here wants to talk about. First things first, I want to say please do please subscribe this YouTube channel. I'm actually really loving doing it. We got home from the Vanderbilt game a couple of nights ago, or last night. I sat up doing YouTube shorts till like midnight. It was a long day, but really working hard, really trying to get this YouTube channel off the ground. So for all of you that are new, please do please subscribe. Let's get into talking Bama. So, Bama gets their revenge, beating the Commodores 30-14 in Bryant-Denny. There's a ton to talk about in this game, and it didn't just start when the game started. It started preseason. I know most of you probably saw it, but Diego Pavia caused a media firestorm. I have the video. Practicing the victory formation, taking a knee in Bryant-Denny. Here's the thing. Is it for show? Yeah. He did it because he knew it was going to get clicks and likes and all this kind of stuff. We had Johnny Manziel on the sideline, former Heisman winner. Game day was in town. It was all the pageantry of football that you wanted. And then at the end of it, we got a Bama win. So it was what I had hoped for this weekend. Now, how we got there, it was interesting. The biggest question I had for Bama coming into this week was, can Bama play with success? And that being, can we play when our backs aren't against the wall? Can we play when the criticism isn't aimed towards us, like it was after week 1 against Florida State? We did the same thing last year. We went out, we beat Georgia in a game of the year. We looked great coming into the season, and then we go out and we lose to Vanderbilt away. It was all in front of us when we went to play Oklahoma. We go out, we win a couple games, we go play the SEC championship game. We ended up losing that one. So there was a ton of times last season that we had success and momentum going for us, but then we dropped the ball. Not literally. Well, literally in some cases last year, but we dropped the ball figuratively. And this season, the big question was, okay, we can win the tough games now away from home. We beat Georgia. We lost to Florida State. But then since then, we put everybody through the buzzsaw. And now that we have some success and some momentum going forward, can we play with that? And the answer is yes. We showed it this past weekend. It's been since Florida State. Is Bama the same team that they were? Are they the same program? Is Kalen DeBoer the guy for Bama? Okay, we go out and beat ULM, put them to the sword. It's ULM. All right, we went and beat Wisconsin. It's Wisconsin. Okay, well, we have Georgia next. Go out and beat Georgia. Okay, now can this Bama continue to build on that? Beat Vanderbilt? Yes, they can. So This team is heading in a very positive direction. I think that it showed a little bit early in this game that we weren't as laser sharp and we weren't as focused as we were against Georgia. And I said it. I said it to my brother who was sitting there. I said this first half team does not look like the same team that went out and played in Athens. We weren't as sharp. We weren't as focused, and I was a little bit nervous. I thought that we could have a repeat of last year where we take this lightly. We got a road trip to Missouri next weekend. Who's also a good football team. We'll talk about that, but I got a little bit concerned saying, is this that same team? Is this the same team as last year? Have we not taken a big step forward and beating opponents that we probably should? And now, don't get me wrong, Vanderbilt has a good football team, the best football team that they probably had in my lifetime. So full credit to them. I think they're a good program. I can't remember the head coach's name off the top of my head, but I think he does a very good job at Vanderbilt, and what he's done there is impressive. But we should be beating this Vanderbilt team. And we go into the break 14-14. Well, I'll start at the beginning. We get busted big for a big run. We talked about it in the pregame videos, talking about, can Bama stop the run? Can we find success on the ground? Can Ty continue his hot streak? Can this defense make up for last year? Were the big talking points that we had going into this game. Vanderbilt rips off a 75-yard run or whatever it was to score and open up the game 7-0. Then we lose out on another drive, and they start moving down the field. Defense steps up huge. We could have been down 14. Like last year, I in my head, I blanked last year. We were down 14-0 against Vanderbilt after they scored and got a pick six, and we didn't want to be there again. Defense comes up huge. They force a fumble. They strip the ball out of Pavia's hands. Offense then starts to make their move, and we score. Vanderbilt comes right back and scores another one. Okay, well, this isn't an easy game. We knew it wasn't going to be. And again, Vanderbilt, they had this game circled on their calendar and double underlined. You know that Pavia wanted to come out and try and make an example and try and get his second win over Bama. And there were times in this game, and we'll talk about the positives and the negatives. There were times in this game that were negative, and I don't want to break up kind of how the game flow went, where we got a little too cute. We got a little too smart for ourselves. But that 2-minute drive to end the half, I mean, we're down 7-14. Vanderbilt gets the ball after half. It's 1 minute and 20 seconds to go. We burned all of our timeouts. We got 1 minute, 20 seconds to walk the field and score a touchdown. We do it. I mean, that was the best this team looked the whole game up to that point, and probably for the not for the rest of the game. Up to that point, that was the best this team had looked the whole game. And we did it out of instinct. We did it out of outmanning the other guy. Again, Vanderbilt as a good football team, man to man, personnel to personnel, they don't stack up. They have a couple of guys out there who are really talented football players, but across the board, they're not going to stack up with this Bama team. And I think in that 2-minute drive, we showed that. And I think that is what gave us a little bit of that spark to say, you know what? We don't have to get cute. We don't have to be clever. We don't have to out scheme these guys. We beat them man to man every single time. So let's go out and do that in the second half. And the second half Bama team that showed up, different. Absolutely different. I want to start off and just read to you the Vanderbilt second half drive chart. Vanderbilt gets the ball to start the second half. 4 plays, 16 yards, punt. 3 plays, 6 yards, punt. 6 plays, 58 yards, interception. We get into the fourth quarter. 10 plays, 0 yards, turnover on downs. 2 plays, 15 yards. The game is over. Vanderbilt had the ball 5 times in that second half, did not score once. This defense came out. They played winning football. And that's the second week in a row they've done this. A lot of criticism, a lot of stuff was thrown at this defense at halftime even of this ball game. And again, rightfully so. The offense wasn't playing their best game, but the defense had given up a lot of leeway to this Vanderbilt team. Again, we got a big fumble recovery that helped us get back into it early on. But this defense now in the second half has played winning football 2 weeks in a row. They stepped up against Georgia. They made some big stops and big moments when it really mattered. And they did the same thing against Vanderbilt this past weekend. Huge interception from Keon Sabb. Big strip fumble. I can't actually remember who ended up getting the strip fumble. I want to say it was Justin Jefferson in the first half of that game. That's what winning football likes. That's what winning football looks like. Winning football looks like your defense stepping up, playing complementary football to your offense. And last year we didn't have that. We had a very stop-starty offense to begin with. Defense was also, I would call it light switch defending. We were either on and we were off. But um, fair play to Kane Womack. He did a good job of making adjustments at halftime. This team came out and we were a different animal in the second half. If the defense plays like that week in, week out, and the offense continues to succeed, the sky is the limit for this Bama team. I think that we talked about a couple other things. The run game being vital for both teams. I'll give you some run stats. Jam led the way for Bama. We outrushed Vandy. Vanderbilt has a really good running offense. They got most of their running yards on that one big busted play. Bama outrushed from 146 to 135. Jam, 22 carries, had 136 all by himself. He outran Vanderbilt's whole team. That's marked improvement. And we've missed Jam for the early portion of the season. It's good to have him back from injury, but he ran hard against Georgia. He did a lot of utility things very well against Georgia. But this week, we saw what he's really about. Hard runner, finds lanes. He's going to run you over if you try and stop him. And the offensive line, full credit to him, did a better job of blocking for him. We got pushes. When you're in the stadium and watching the game, the past couple of years, we'll see blocks from the offensive line and maybe a couple of gaps open up, but you don't ever see that push. This weekend we got the push. When the game's flowing and going, and where we sit is in one of the end zones. So you're watching the game down the field, and obviously, if you haven't been to a game, you don't have the yellow and the black marker to see where the first down and the line of scrimmage is. And there was a couple of times I was like, okay, we kind of just crashed, fell forward for 2 yards or whatever it was. But no, the offensive line got serious pushes in this game, and we were going forward for 4 yards without opening up big run gaps. We were just getting big pushes. That's the kind of Bama offense I know. That's the kind of Bama offense we can have with this offensive line, and we showed it this week. Now having our leading rusher back, I think this run game can really start stepping up. Like I said, 136 yards, it's a huge improvement week to week from what we have been having against the Vanderbilt defense that's solid. That defensive front for Vanderbilt's a good unit. I would say that to a point. There are times where they're better than Georgia, but that's a solid defensive unit. I would say that for Vanderbilt, that's probably their best. That is the best part of their game is their defensive line, and we were able to go out there and manhandle them. So I think that is huge improvement. We held Pavia to 198 yards through the air, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and a fumble. So did a good job containing Pavia. We know Bama in the past has struggled with quarterbacks that can use their legs. And there were times in this game, I haven't gone back and watched the film, but there were times in this game where we did struggle with eye discipline and gap discipline. But it happens game to game, especially in a game that was so stop-starty like this one was. I swear that first half took 3 hours to finish. I think both teams ended up using all their timeouts. We had media timeouts, injuries galore. It was one of those games where it didn't feel like the flow of the game was right for Bama, especially in that first half. But even then, we came out of it with a win. You feel like a stop-starty game where that has no real momentum or flow to it is always going to favor a team like Vanderbilt. But Bama was able to come out. They were able to create momentum for their own and able to walk out of there with a win. Big stops on the defense, a couple of important scores for the offense. Ty did throw his first interception of the year. Look, it was always going to happen. It's hard for quarterbacks to be perfect, especially this day and age of college football with some of the schemes that defenses draw up and how in depth this Ryan Grubb offense is. It happens. It was a 4th down. To be completely honest, if the Vanderbilt guy had batted the ball down, they would have been in better field position. Didn't matter. They scored anyway. But if he bats that ball down, they're in better field position instead of taking the interception on the 7. Was it his best game? No. But if this is the ceiling for Ty Simpson, I'll read you the stats. 23 for 31, 340 yards and 2 touchdowns with 1 interception on top of that. It wasn't his best game. It didn't have his best QBR of the season. But if that's his bottom, the ceiling is so high for this guy. We've talked about it all week. I am fully on board with Ty Simpson as a quarterback. I think he is underrated in the Heisman race. I think he's underrated on draft boards. I think this guy's the real deal. And if this is as bad as it gets for the guy, 1 interception with 340 yards of total offense, I'm okay with it. The offense did leave a lot of points out there, and there is one problem that I did notice. I noticed it to a point at Georgia, but it was more apparent here when we didn't have crowd noise and a tough environment for our offense to play. We do at times try and get too clever, and I'll expand on that a little bit in saying defense and offense both do it. Kane Womack's a guy who's come from a smaller school at South Alabama, where you have to scheme to try and win football games against offenses that are personnel wise matching up with you. So you have to be the better coach. You have to out scheme these guys. Bro, we've got some of the best defensive players in the country. You don't have to out scheme them. Go out there, let them do their job. Yes, there are points that we have to make, places we have to make improvements. Like I said in the pregame, eye discipline, gap discipline, movement, contains, all that kind of stuff. But man to man, we're better than that team. And in the second half, we went out there and we proved it. Same thing goes for the offense. I love Ryan Grubb. I love what he's done with this team and with this offense. The trust that he has in these guys, the trust that he has in Ty and Germ, and Caden Proctor got another run for a first down. The trust that he has in these guys is immense, and it shows week to week. There were times in this game where we tried to be too perfect. There were times in this game where we were making really late adjustments in the snap count or in the when the play clock was winding down. We made some really late adjustments. There were play calls that were a little too cute. The direct snap to Jeremy Bernard was the first one that really comes to mind. And what it wasn't disguised, it was just a direct snap run. We were standing in the end zone that we were trying to run into, and you could see it immediately. The Germ was behind the center, Ty was off to the side, and then Ty goes out in motion. Thought, okay, maybe we throw it to him or get clever. Just a direct run against a team that's got a good run defense. It didn't really fool anybody. So there were times where we try and get too clever on both sides of the ball. And don't get me wrong, I want Ryan Grubb to be in his bag all day, every day. The playbook he drew up against Georgia, the playbook he's drawn up all year outside of the Florida State game has been fantastic. But there are times where we do get too clever, try and get too perfect, try and get the perfect look when we're trying to line up and make adjustments. But again, that's growing pains. I think we'll be fine going forward. But there's times where, you know what, you say, we got Ryan Williams, we got Jeremy Bernard, we got Isaiah Horton, we got Jan Miller, we got Ty Simpson. We got a better offensive line than you have defensive line. Let's go out there and we're just going to beat these guys straight up. We don't have to scheme these guys. We don't have to be the better coach to win this game. We can go out there and we can beat them because we did a good job in recruiting. We got the right guys. We put them in the right spots at the right times. Let's go out and just beat these guys heads up. And that's what we did in the second half. We did a better job with that in the second half, but I thought it was the most apparent whenever we had that 2-minute drive. And I thought it was really apparent whenever we went out there and we drove it down the field on Vanderbilt to effectively end the football game. I can read you the drive chart for our second half. Bama, 6 plays, 68 yards, a field goal, 3 minutes, 34 seconds off the clock. Bama, 11 plays, 66 yards, another field goal, 5:56 off the clock. Bama, 16 plays, 69 yards, a field goal, 8 minutes, 30 seconds taken off the clock. And then we scored a touchdown, 7 plays, 42 yards, 2 minutes, 8 seconds to end the game. That 8-minute drive was a thing of beauty. It reminded me of old school Nick Saban football. 16 plays for 8:29. If you're a defense and you're out there for 8.5 minutes and you have 16 plays run on you against a team that's as physical as Alabama, you're going to be sucking wind. I'll give you that straight up. That's the kind of offense we can play against teams like Vanderbilt and teams like Missouri for next week. That's the kind of offense we can play. We don't have to be clever. We don't have to be the better coach all the time. We can be the right coach because we put in. We can be the better coach because we put in the right guys at the right time. And we started doing that late in this game. We got much more comfortable as the game went on. One negative I did have about this game. We didn't create havoc in the backfield like I wish we would have. Now, Vanderbilt's a team where the ball is never going to stay in the hands of the quarterback for more than 3 seconds, more than likely. That ball's going to be getting out quick. It was in the first half. We played really soft coverage. That ball is out on the edges early. That we never had any time to get pressure. There were times late in the game where we did start getting some pressures and forced Pavia to run, get him out of the pocket. We didn't convert as often as I would like to have. We had 2 tackles for loss and 1 sack, which, again, you're playing against a guy who's tough to bring down. That offensive line of Vanderbilt's tough. Um, Shifty guy who can throw the ball on the move, creates a lot of stuff with his feet. This Vanderbilt's more dangerous whenever he is moving and throwing the ball rather than when he's in the pocket and passing. So we respected that, and we should have, but we just missed on some chances to convert uh, in moments in this game. But again, overall, defense did a very good job of containing. One thing for Vanderbilt, to be fair to them, and I said this in the preseason or in the pregame, um, that defensive line and that linebacking unit, very solid. They had 6 tackles for loss and 4 sacks. I said that they were probably going to be better than the Georgia unit, and stats back that up. They drew up some clever blitzes, created some problems for Ty, forced him to throw the ball earlier than he wanted to at times. So they did a good job. Offensive line did a good enough job giving Ty time, but my biggest negative, my biggest takeaway from this game was we need to convert on touchdowns. We went 4 for 4 in the red zone. Most of them were field goals. We could have walked away with this game at 45 had we turned some of those field goals into points. And again, I think that comes down to being a little too clever at times in the red zone. You can put your big body guys up there and trust them to run down Vanderbilt and put balls in the end zone, which I think that's a lesson learned. We go forward now and do that against Missouri next week. We just need to convert more whenever we have opportunities to score touchdowns. Positives, though, there were a ton of them. A couple of big ones. This team, in the past, last year against Vanderbilt, we went into halftime and said, you know what? This is probably going to be a different team that shows up. Second half, we'll go out there, we'll win this football game. It didn't happen. This year, second half, said, you know what? We're going to see if we have the same team as last year, or we're going to see if these guys can dig in, if they can be gritty, if they can go out there and win this ball game in the second half, and they did. Defense stepped up massively for the second time 2 weeks in a row. They made a huge impact, got a couple of turnovers, and not just turnovers, they got them in key moments. They got them when Vanderbilt effectively had points on the board. We should have had a third interception with that Keon Sabb INT that was called back for holding, which is soft. If you ask me, that Vanderbilt was holding the entire time in that secondary because they knew they couldn't keep up man for man. So I think it was soft. But overall, a lot of positives to take. I like to see it as a graph. And this team, we started low. We started with FSU. We started at the bottom. But progression has been made. Progression has been made. Progression has been made week to week to week. And if you look at a team like Texas, or if you look at a team like Penn State, there's no direction. There's no way forward for them. We have a direction. We're taking steps week to week to get better, to get better. And I don't think this team is peaked. I don't think this team is as good as they could be yet. We saw they played a great first half against Georgia. We slowed down a little bit in the third quarter, and then we played a good enough fourth quarter to win the ball game. I don't think we've peaked yet. I think this team has a higher ceiling than we have shown so far. But if this is the game where we say, okay, you know what, Ty didn't have his best. Ryan Williams, to be fair to him, played a great game. 6 catches, 98 yards, a touchdown. Jerem had another good game. 5 receptions, 82 yards. Isaiah Horton played well. Josh Cuevas played well. Latzir Brooks played well. We had guys who played consistently well. But when we say, you know what, this is the weakest performance we've had in 5 weeks since Florida State. Okay, well, we still beat a ranked Vanderbilt team who's a very good team, and we beat them comfortably. We covered the spread. We beat them by 2.5 touchdowns, whatever it was. That's the kind of improvement we need to see. When we're here, nobody can beat us. But when we're a couple notches down, when we're at 75%, we struggled a little bit in practice, we're a little bit beat up, it's a tough week to go out there and focus. That's when I want to see that this team can still go out and compete with good football teams. We don't have to go out and compete with Georgia every week. I would like us to go out and play like we're playing Georgia every week because we always do it very well. But whenever this team's at 75%, can we play well? Can we beat the teams that we should be beating, but we're circled on everybody's calendar? We're circled on Missouri's calendar. We're going in to play them next weekend. So we got to be able to show up for every game because every game is another team's Super Bowl. This is Vanderbilt's Super Bowl. They talk about SEC championships and national championships and all that, but This is the game that they had circled on their calendar. This is the game that they were ready for all year long, and we went out and we shut them down when we didn't play our best. So that is market improvement. That is improvement week to week and year to year. That's the kind of stuff we need to see. Whether we go out and win a national championship this year or not, I think that's our ceiling. I think that's a very realistic and attainable goal. But whether we do that or not, results like this are what matter. We go look at Penn State and they lose to UCLA. We go look at Texas and they lose to Florida. We go look at every teams every week that underperform. But and that could have been us this week. It was one of those, like I said at the beginning of the show, it was one of those weird weekends where teams are losing left and right. But you know what? We struggled a little bit, but we steadied the ship. We played a 75-80% game and walked away with a comfortable win at home. That's the kind of stuff that we need to see week to week. But it also comes with saying, you know what? When we have a team like Georgia, then we need to be at our top peak. I would love us to be at our peak every week. It's hard to do, I know. But again, if this is our 7 out of 10 game, it's good enough for me. Bama went out. They got revenge. Everything's more right in the world than it was yesterday. So good for Bama. We play Missouri in a couple of weeks. I'll be out of town. I will do my best to get a preview show up for that. I don't know if it's going to be on a phone. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do my best for you guys to get it up. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. It was a full show. We talked a lot of football. I hope you guys had a great weekend. I know I did. Like I said at the beginning, please do please subscribe. The numbers have been getting better and better week to week for the show, so I appreciate all of you guys who are here. If you are new, hit the like, hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell notification things when we do live videos. We'll do film study and things like that. That kind of stuff gets copyrighted right away. So either you're live and you watch it or you don't watch it at all. So make sure you hit the bell notification to jump in for that. I think that's going to be it for this week. I should see you guys at some point. Like I said, I don't know how I'm going to do the show, but we'll figure out a way to do the show for the Missouri game. I appreciate all you guys. I hope you have a wonderful week and Roll Tide.